Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jared Rand, and welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Saturday, January 6, 2024, a little after 3:15 p.m. Eastern. We could all use a bit more spiritual depth in our lives. It makes life richer and more interesting to integrate the spiritual aspect of our existence. One of the most intriguing spiritual topics that has transformed this world has been the exploration of what God is. Once we know the truth about what God is, all frustration, bitterness, depression, apathy, struggle, suffering will quickly come to an end. We discover the source of peace because we have touched the greatest truth there is. See, this civilization has been purposely redirected, misdirected. And any last vestige of jogging our memories is not there, so there's nothing to instigate a memory recall. You've heard the saying, the truth shall set you free, because lies are what imprison us. That is why it's so important to do our inner research and discover what God is directly for ourselves. Meditate on God if you wish to feel an immense amount of joy and freedom today. The truth about what God is far beyond anything anyone can write down with the limited communications on this planet. So whatever language one would use to describe God will always fall short. Words are limited, time-bound expressions cannot fully describe the divine infinity. So, the eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend. Henry Bergson. God is all the energy and all that there is, ever has been, ever will be, ever beyond, and forever. Everything. All of it. In this energy is a supreme intelligence and power that we cannot see behind the physical universe. It is the force of the purest love, which behaves like a spiritual superglue, holding every atom in a perfect place, connecting every being across all time and space. Now, if you were to look at you look at the human body, you see the trillions of cells and all the other things, that the human body represents or makes up. Now picture a God body, which encompasses all that there is, ever has been, ever will be, ever beyond, and forever. That's all of it. And that's why we are within that God body. All the planets, pulsars, suns, stars, beings, you name it, it's in it. We're like quantum particles in a vast ocean of energy. This is the purest form of consciousness. Connects all dimensions, all physical forms. This pervasive intelligence is extremely vast and all-encompassing. It's beyond anything we can imagine or understand with our brains. It is the fabric of space and time, matter and energy, forces and fields, matter and dark matter, consciousness and unconsciousness, and all Akashic information throughout time. There is simply no place or time that the God Source is not. It's good to be aware that I am referring to God as an it for semantic reasons. And this can create implications of limitation and illusion. To be more precise, God is more of an eternal isness, which is not limited by time or space. This infinite isness is always there and will always be there. The isness was there before anything was there. The moment any of us were born, these bodies, and will be there after we leave our physical body. The isness is all-pervading, behind every single thought and thing in this universe beyond that we could possibly imagine in between. When God is not there, all of life is ordinary. When God exists, then everything is extraordinary, Osho. God's source is the purest form of consciousness. This infinite source is always awake, aware, always here, now. There's never been a moment when consciousness is not listening. It's difficult to pinpoint who is the listener with the mind, because the mind subjectifies everything in duality. Only when the mind is quiet, still, like a lake without any ripples, can we get a taste of the truth. Heaven is not a place, nor a condition. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness, the knowledge that there is nothing else, nothing outside of this oneness, and nothing else within Course in Miracles. God is existence, and everything behind existence. This means God cannot have an opposite force, because there is nothing you can compare it with or go against it. Once something has an opposite, it falls into the world of duality. Everything in duality is transient. And this means that it will always come and go. God doesn't come or go. God is all that is, the ultimate, creative, eternal source of consciousness. Within this understanding, God cannot have an opposite. Whenever I hear religious people talking about God, they typically refer to God as a pure light or something perfectly good. They tend to regurgitate past teachings about God, implying that the opposite force to God is darkness or evil. This implication creates the fabric of duality and simply cannot be based on the highest truth. It does not point to the eternal isness of the God source, and instead creates a mental battle of good versus evil. The God, devil, good, evil concept has left millions, if not billions, of people confused about what God is. It mixes God into the realm of duality, taking away God's omnipotence, and thus must be based on a lie. Even if you should say that ignorance or demonic forces are the opposite forces to divine holy intelligence, this is still perceiving God through the mind, and living in a dualistic fabrication of reality. There is no opposite of love. All there is and ever will be is love. Outside of this duality, quote, reality of good and evil, is love or home, as it is known to others. We are intentionally here and intentionally moving with consciousness to remembrance of our innate self as one, as love. God can only be understood when there is no mind present, no higher nor lower, no right, no wrong, only pure presence, the infinity of consciousness in all directions and dimensions. At the highest level of truth, we can see how there is nothing outside of God's all-pervasive field of influence, energy, and connection. The isness of God reaches beyond the dualistic mind, yet must allow for a game of duality to exist so that our souls can step out of the bliss of heaven to have experiences, learn, grow, and spiritually evolve. The only trouble is when people foolhardily believe that all of reality is just this 3D world enclosed in a container of good and evil. The 3D world does not include the spiritual dimension, so it cannot be the full truth. It's one bandwidth of information in this universe, yet an essential stepping stone on the way to self-realization. The ego is impatient because its time is limited. The spirit is patient because it knows it is eternal. Emily's quotes. The greatest fault of humankind is this ignorance and amnesia about what God is. When people believe they are separated from God, they start manifesting complications, struggles, and intense suffering in their lives. The ego feels limited and disconnected from its spiritual source. This suffering makes us forget that we are spiritual beings who cannot die. When our ego feels this urgency to fight for its survival, defend its point of view, prove others to be wrong, and protect itself and its possessions, it is fully immersed in the great lie about what God is. This is the eternal growing point for all of humanity. We all came here to experience limitation, which includes the impact of this ignorance about what God is. Our lives are not designed to be a struggle from the cradle to the grave. They are not, no matter what you've been conditioned to believe. We are a super powerful manifesting being who is always connected to God. When we know that we are deeply, intimately connected with this one source of higher consciousness, life flows like an easy river. Whenever we believe we are disconnected from God, we begin living a lie. And the feedback from this universe will be instant and clear. We all have to go through living this lie so that we can fully integrate the deepest truth. You are what you think. If you think you are bound, you are bound. If you think you are free, you are free. Anything. Anytime we are living a lie in this life, our bodies will tell us. We won't feel at peace inside ourselves. Our mind ego will be on this constant search for something. It will think that there is something we are missing outside in the world that will make us feel better. We feel a burning desire for more money, the right mate, a better home, better friends, better food, health, entertainment. The list goes on and on and on. This eternal searching of the ego is part of the game. And how we know we are not deeply aligned with the highest spiritual truth. Nothing is more intimate than our relationship with God. It is something more personal than can be shared or explained. It's the ultimate source of consciousness and also beyond it, as it is creating it all. It is without limitations, free from imperfections, and it is closer to you, to any of us, than our next thought, heartbeat, or breath of air. Ultimately, there's nothing in this universe that can destroy God, challenge God, or go against such an absolute, all-creative, unifying power. That's a fact. Whatever our minds thinks could be the opposite of God is merely a fabrication of the mind. A great story about reality, always based on the world of good, isn't it? Isn't it? A great story about reality, always based on the world of good, bad duality. Once we see beyond duality, we wake up to the most beautiful reality. I didn't change. I just woke up. It just doesn't make sense for there to be an opposite to God. Does it really? Imagine if there was an opposite force to this incredible perfect power. This would then take away from God's perfect power, and that wouldn't make God all pervasive and perfect, right? It would make God limited and imperfect. If you only live in this dualistic world of right and wrong, good and evil, you feel disconnected from God because you're ignoring the truth that this universe is infinite in all directions and dimensions. See how the God source is always connecting you with infinity. You tap into the spiritual truth of your existence and start moving from 3D into 4D and 5D. If you believe in God, then work with Him. If you do not, then become one. Nisargadatta. Very well put. So maybe you're a super logical thinker and need to take a purely rational route in this inquiry. Try and see how there is nobody in this entire universe that is 100% pure evil or 100% pure good. Sure, there might be beings that reach 99.99%, but they cannot remain only at 100% forever. You'll see there's always a little light within the dark and a little darkness within the light. Always particles. God is this universe, which is perfect balance of energy. We can always find something positive or negative in any situation if we zoom out far enough into a larger perspective of existence. There's always going to be the possibility that something out there is more pure or more evil in an infinite spectrum of comparison. Everything in duality must exist somewhere along this dualistic spectrum. This can all be confusing for the mind because the mind is simply too small a container to hold the infinite truth of reality, which is beyond duality, yet includes it. What if I fall? Oh, but, my darling, what if you fly? Once we accept that God is beyond the grasp of the mind, yet always behind every thought in the mind, then we can truly surrender to the truth. We discover something deeper inside ourselves that knows God directly. By retraining our brains to let go of control and trust this universe, we discover the immense enlightening freedom of walking our spiritual path. We realize that it's much more important to feel happy and free than being right and living in suffering each day. Each day becomes an adventure in choosing freedom over our egos. We begin knowing that the opposite of being right is this liberating experience of abiding in the eternal source of consciousness. With this understanding, the experience of God's loving presence naturally finds its way into our hearts, minds, and lives. I can help you find your spiritual inner guide through these meditations. Not a lot of time is spent on the God. Look at all of the diversity of perspectives of God. Now, wouldn't you agree that most perspectives are in the religious realm? Okay? How much have we been conditioned to believe since we were children, generation after generation after generation, that God is not within us, God is out there. Right? Heaven is not within us. Heaven is up there. You see the cycle here. You begin to see it without judgment. You watch it and you understand it. Keeping you in the false belief that you are separate from God. Think about that. Everywhere you go or look or get curious, right? You notice that the God is always elusive, right? Mysterious. And outside of you. And separate from you. How long has this been going on? Oh my goodness. Millennia. Works though. It's worked though, hasn't it? Up until now. The veil's finally disintegrating, falling apart. See, this is where this civilization must go in order for it to expand, in order for it to flourish. Leave religion behind, surrender it, let it go, focus on the God that you are. That totally expands everything. You find yourself operating from what? From what position? What energy? From your God self, not the ego mind. The ego mind begins to dissipate because it starts to realize that it's no longer needed. And eventually, with this civilization, ego mind will not exist eventually. We don't need it. But we've experienced many lifetimes with it. You really, if you want, you could say that I don't care if someone says, well, you're a new soul. You just came from the one, right? Doesn't matter. We've had so many lifetimes. We've experienced suffering, death over and over again, and pain and sorrow and anguish and love and excitement and bliss and joy for eons. We'll keep doing that. Why? Because it's what we do. And for anybody to believe that they're going to be all-knowing, all-seeing, then they need to check up from the neck up and they're off target. You can see how things have been tainted a bit, huh? Where this civilization is so connected to the body that it believes that it is the body. It isn't. Body is a vessel. That's it. No different than you driving a car. You're inside what? A vessel. It takes you places, right? And with it, you can get there faster than using your body and walking or running. Going within, making your decision, not anybody else, staying within. Yeah, we can enter physical material world, right? You know, we want to have fun. And we play around in the physical material world. But we know we're not of it. And we learn. So if you were to, let's say, you just removed yourself from everyone else. You sat in a cave, day in, day out, year after year. Would you learn anything? Would you? No interaction with anybody, living in a cave year after year. Yes, you would learn. You would learn to eat things you've never eaten before. You would learn to acquire taste for things. You would become more accustomed to darkness and lightness. These are all things that you'd learn. Now, you see, we have this kind of jaded perspective where, well, if we're not doing anything, we're not learning. Right? How can you learn if you don't do anything? You got to get out there. You could sit on a bench and watch people. You don't judge them. You just watch them and learn. You could sit on a bench in nature, in the woods, and learn. We're always learning. It doesn't matter what we're doing or not doing. We're always learning. Now, it might not be front and center. It might be secondary to us. We see a bird fly by or in a tree, we watch the bird. Bird watches us. You know, we see a bug crawling on the ground. And then you sit there long enough and you start realizing that all of it is you, God. And you are all it. See, when we develop or embrace deep trust, we will evolve as spiritual beings. But without it, we are lost. We can ascend to the point where we are trusting that every experience that this life brings us is absolutely divine and perfect. Even if an experience may be painful, the greater deep eternal love is known and felt hidden inside. A trusting heart can quietly realize how a fear is our greatest teacher, always invoking a higher state of spiritual awareness into our future, so that we stop pretending to be these small, powerless, ego-driven beings and start living that truly amazing life that we so love. It's a choice for any of us. Choosing trust over fear really comes down to worshiping our spiritual nature over our ego. It is about a deep devotion to our real selves and being truly dedicated to filling up our precious time on this earth with more relaxation, appreciation, and joy instead of ego-driven anxieties, demands, and tension. With trust as our deepest guide, we can pierce through the ego's veil of ignorance and perceive those life-challenging people and situations with the utmost patience and appreciation. Having no resistance to fear, we flow with the great spirit of life and know everything works itself out karmically in the very end. This level of trust instills such a fresh, enlightening perspective about this life, which instantly liberates the mind from all negative thinking. With trust in charge, when we hit an emotional wall of resistance or fear, we open up to it instead of shut down even further. We feel into the wall, knowing that there is always a bigger spiritual lesson behind it to be learned, and looking forward to finding out what it is. This approach is what allows for a deeper state of peace to make its home inside our heart and soul. Trust is such a powerful force that can turn the most ordinary life instantly into an extremely rich spiritual adventure. With trust, we feel safe and connected with everyone we meet, and naturally are overflowing with an effervescent joy in all directions. We tend to respond to others with compassion instead of criticism, curiosity instead of impatience, and understanding instead of judgment. Every moment of this life becomes a new doorway that opens up to the highest and deepest aspects of our being. When we become more aware how trust is a choice, we discover our power to either expand or contract our experience of this life in each moment. This power enables us to become the spiritual masters of our destiny. We no longer fear life, yet embrace it all. As we gain more trusting momentum, we are able to remain only in the trust vibration for longer periods of time. We understand how to skyrocket our consciousness in a matter of minutes, eventually catapult our lives into the fifth dimensional realm of the divine. Trust is the magical gateway to our true unlimited nature as it transcends the ego and opens the door to our most enlightened state of consciousness. The self is like the screen. The world is like the pictures on it. You can see the picture only so long as there is a screen. But when the seer himself becomes the screen, only the self remains for a moment. Such as if fear has been dominating your life, retreat. You can let it go. Forgive yourself. Free the others. And release whatever has happened in your past. You can move on. A lot of people don't move on. Why is that? They don't move on. I've met people that have carried grudges their whole life. Twists them, bends them, distorts them. It's like a blankie. We don't let go. We don't forgive ourselves. It is not worth it to hang on to any low vibration for another day. Trust that all the trauma you received in life was given by God to wake you up from this deep, sleepy dream. We are all asleep to a certain extent, and everyone has been caught in some dramatic, perpetually self-wounding victim spin cycle, taught to never trust in this life, ourselves, or anyone else again. Just let it go, and remember you are still lovable, worthy, and totally amazing exactly as you are. You jumped on board for a massive class in spiritual growth and radical enlightened maturity. Whatever our past life circumstances might have been, we are always given the choice how we wish to respond to them now. Every time we choose trust over fear, everyone's heart opens a bit wider. We feel more gentle, healing, heart-warming energy coming in. This warm, trusting heart is needed in this life. For the divine, intelligent universe is always testing our level of awareness, checking in to see how awake we truly are. The test is always the same. How will we choose to respond? With more trust or more fear? It might throw us a bag of super sour lemons just to see if we know how to add some playful, creative sweetness and make a wonderful picture of lemonade. It's good to know that the opposite of fear is not love. It is trust. Yet through living a life of trust, we naturally start falling in love with everything and everyone. With 100% trust, we become loveaholics of life, feeling naturally orgasmic about this precious opportunity we have to live, feeling completely turned on by this chance to find our spiritual path and connection. The expansive feeling in the heart can become so divinely open that every breath feels as though we are making love with the divine. Are you ready for choosing a life devoted to always responding with trust yet? The spiritual power we receive from the trust vibration is simply awesome. Total trust effortlessly engulfs all kinds of egoic negativity that may try to dominate any room. When a person who has 100% unshakable trust enters any community, it's so penetrating and contagious that everyone's ego eventually falls into either embarrassment or humility. When this group of people all simultaneously begin choosing trust over fear, you can feel this giddy, enlightening joy exponentially expanding through everyone's lives. The group energy becomes more relaxed and at ease with their life, their future, and everything as it is. I'll join you in the meditation, and I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose. And an easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Remain still. When in your life you are an unconscious doing machine, where in your life are you an unconscious doing machine? If so, then where are you a conscious being? Take this with you for the rest of the day into the evening and night and the following morning. We will return here Sunday, January 7, 2024, 3:15 p.m. Eastern, to continue our global guided meditation call. Be gentle, kind, generous, and humble with yourself at all times. Be in the highest of the highest high, deepest of the deepest deepest, and purest of the purest purest, eternal gratitude at all times, no matter what's going on within you or outside of you.